Today, we're looking at Noodler's Blue. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, as it sounds, Noodler's Blue is, surprise, a blue ink. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a Cross Baliy with a medium nib to take my notes for this video. Now, before we get to the writing samples, let's take a look at the sciencey bits. Up first is a chromatography. I agree with Vita that doing multiple chromatographies has taught me a lot. Now, on the one on the left, I put a line of ink down. I immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds, and we see a darker light blue line at the very bottom, but it's very light. It flees all the way up the strip, and it gets much darker with almost, I'd call it like a blue-black idea at the top, but it's nowhere near a black. The one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And that darker strip on the bottom is much darker. It then flees as a very light blue up and becomes a thick dark blue at the top, but it didn't travel nearly as high up the page. Resistance tests are done to see how it can be expected to hold up on paper, but more importantly, how hard it might be to clean out of your pens. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. When we look at the highlighter, we see that especially on the H, it started to move it around. It started to really blur the writing. So that means I would not use this in a note-taking situation if I'm a person that highlights. Water completely reactivated and started to move it off the page. Now that's only 30 seconds there and a lot of it's gone away. Pen Flush did very much the same thing. I only put a drop down, maybe a little too much this time, but it's completely going away. And you see in the center of that, it's getting much whiter so that given time, it'll completely disappear. Bleach obliterated it, gone. But there is no reason to use bleach or even get to the Pen Flush stage to clean this out of your pen. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Noodler's Blue has a viscosity of 1.53. That is in the red. This is getting to be like water. This is a very fast-flowing ink. There's no pen, unless your pen is an absolute gusher, that this ink should be a problem for. To find my average dry times, I use the writing samples for the extra fine and medium nib done on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Now, Noodler's Blue has an average dry time of 21 seconds. So it is on normal. It's on the edge of normal. It's pushing the cusp of being a long time, but it is a normal dry time. Now let's look at the writing sample. I have this ink in sample form. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub. I use a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairefontaine. Clairefontaine gives us no bleeding, no ghosting. With the 1.1, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. The extra fine gives us no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry, not unmanageable. And the medium, as a tone, looks slightly darker, just slightly. This could be a thicker line thing, like a trick the eye plays, for the lines being a little bit thicker. With the medium, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shading. 19 seconds to dry. And when we look at the scrubbies, we see that we're not going to expect much shade in this ink. But on the smear test, you can definitely recover this should you smear it. Tomoe River. No bleeding. Absolutely, we have ghosting because it's Tomoe River. With the 1.1, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. Same exact tone of blue for the extra fine, where we have no feathering, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 20 seconds to dry. And then it definitely gets darker again. This is not a trick right here. This is definitely darker for the medium, where we have no feathering, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 38 seconds to dry. That is a long time. Both scrubbies, the extra fine and the medium, we see there's no shading that occurs in there. We have no reason to expect any kind of shade with this ink. And the smear on Tomoe River, never recoverable, and it's not. Looking to the Rhodia paper. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. With the 1.1, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. Same tone. Same tone, more or less. It's real hard. Again, that looks to me more like it's that trick on the eye for being thinner, for being less of it on the white paper. On the extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. So we're getting a good basic blue all the way through this. It does have some decent vibrancy. This is not a dull blue. This is a nice professional blue. 13 seconds to dry with that extra fine. Medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 24 seconds to dry. Looking at the scrubbies, we don't expect to be able to see shading in this ink because we don't see it in the scrubby. Where it looks like it's lighter is just white coming through of the paper. It's not actually getting darker. There's just less white here, which is the reason it's looking a little bit lighter over here. On the smear, you can definitely recover this if you did smear this. Now we go on to Franklin Christoph paper, and we have spots. We have spots of show through, not full bleed, not worrying about where the scrubby, where maybe I was a little aggressive, but we have little spots here and up at the, just all up at the top with the 1.1. We have some beginning spots on the extra fine. We have a couple spots on the medium. So it has not bled through, and it's not ghosting. That's the thing. It's not ghosting. But there's definite spots the ink is working on coming through right at the end of my finger. Again, at the end of my finger. So we get a bunch of spots. Let me grab a pencil and circle some. Uh-oh, pencil. So we get definite spots that it's wanting to bleed through. Just something to be aware of. It doesn't look like it's affecting us, hugely with this. With the 1.1, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. The extra fine gives us a still, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 8 seconds to dry. The medium, still no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 10 seconds to dry. Again, to the scrubby, we don't expect to see shade show up here because we can't see it in the scrubby. And on the smear, I could definitely recover this based on that smear. So then I'm looking at Original Crown Mill. And again, this ink has spots that it's definitely looking like it's pushing through. Ignoring the scrubby part, it's got a couple spots. It definitely looks like it wants to push through. The 1.1 gives us no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. The same shade of blue, so it doesn't even change for the pen. The same shade of blue comes through on the extra fine. The extra fine has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. 10 seconds. The medium gives us no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 13 seconds to dry. The scrubby shows us we're not going to get any kind of color variation with this ink. And the smear, believe it or not,
you could recover underneath a dark mash of blue. I just don't think it's showing for the camera. There we go. The camera shows that we can see the lines despite the dark mashes of blue that push across. So we could recover it. It wouldn't be pleasant. But this is not note-taking type paper. This is a laid paper, good for correspondence. And that's all that I have for the writing sample.
Instead of finding inks that look like Noodler's blue, I would prefer to find an ink that will complement that blue on the page. I've chosen Diamine Sunset because of its beautiful orange-red color. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Noodler's blue? I think it's a great basic blue. It's a very vibrant blue. It's not as vibrant as the Bay State blue, but it is a great blue. If you like blue inks, don't avoid the inks that just simply name their ink as blue instead of giving it some magical name. Sometimes just calling it blue is enough. And I think this is underrated. I think people don't pay as much attention to it because it has such an average name. Thanks for watching.